Why is it important to think about the social? In the place-based carbon calculator made by Malcolm Morgan and Gillian Annable in Leeds at CREDS, we can see that carbon emissions are socially diverse. People living in urban areas generally produce lower emissions than people living in rural areas. And the urban and rural areas in themselves have differences. And when you drill down into it, you find that affluent lifestyles are more carbon intensive than communities experiencing poverty. So easy, we might think, quick wins here. We promote uptake of electric vehicles amongst the affluent, and we're reducing emissions significantly. Smart. And EVs are ready. Technology Readiness Assessment says so. Technology Readiness Assessment is a commonly used yardstick to measure whether an innovation is ready for the market. And it says EVs are technology readiness level 9, very high, proven to work. But do they work for people? Do they work for society? Are they good for society? Do they really help us decarbonize? Our affluent carbon populations may want 1, 2, maybe 3 electric SUVs to go with their detached houses and to park them on the drive. There's plenty of space. Those living in terraced houses or high-rise buildings won't find it so easy. Electrifying automobility could make existing inequalities worse. And the RAC, the Royal Automobile Club, not exactly anti-car, they have carefully analyzed electrification of Britain's car fleet. They find 2 things. Firstly, if we electrify, we reduce government income from fuel duty significantly. They find that by 2035, fuel duty income from all cars could have declined by 57%. So instead of 15 billion to invest in things, we would have 7 billion. How will we fund mobility infrastructure? And what about carbon reduction? The RAC find that in 2035, we might have 23 billion electric vehicles and plug-in hybrid vehicles, but we will still have about 13 billion petrol cars. At the very best, the fossil fuel consumption would be 32% of 2019 levels, and at worst, it could still be 60% of what we've got now. In other words, even if we electrify at speed and everything, we will not meet our carbon reduction emission reduction targets. And that doesn't even count the emissions that are created by making all these SUVs, electrified SUVs. And electrifying the automobility system as we know it would be hugely destructive. 31 billion EVs in the UK would consume 2 times the world's cobalt production, 3/4 of the world's lithium, plus unethical working conditions and destruction of nature. So how ready really are electric vehicles for society? Could we do better?
So, given time, I'm going to flip over this one and move straight to what we've been doing on societal readiness assessment. Oh yeah, good one, well done. On societal readiness assessment, it all sounds rather complicated and convoluted. So what's been developed over the last few years are a set of tools for digging underneath this, getting underneath the bonnet of the complexity of these problems, so that a wide range of people have useful tools that allow the right questions to be asked and to explore what's actually going on. The tools are integrated into a whole scheme, but also stand alone. They can be quite involved or they can be quite quick. They they are tailored to a whole wide variety of users and to different stages of a project. Can we have the next one? And so just to illustrate, for instance, in the top left here, one of our tools is about stakeholder mapping, and it's not going through stakeholder mapping for the sake of doing stakeholder mapping. It's to try to understand who is involved, truly involved across a whole range of transport decarbonisation projects, in terms of those who have influence and those who experience the impacts of those as well. And how do you involve those in the development of these projects? We're going to be talking about backcasting. Top right here is a diagram to illustrate backcasting. So we have tools about how do you go about thinking about backcasting. Perhaps more importantly to a lot of people, though, is we mustn't call it the barometer, but we still keep calling it the barometer. Technological readiness levels are all about how well are you doing? How do you measure it? Like energy performance certificates on buildings. So we're developing the societal readiness dashboard so that you can actually start to measure a bit better how well your innovation actually delivers on these variety of outcomes that we want. But I think bottom right illustrates perhaps most clearly what societal readiness assessment is about, the spirit of the idea of it. It's really about reflection and exploring ideas. Now, I know we've heard this morning that there's an awful lot of very busy people with limited budgets, and that's completely acknowledged. But where these sorts of tools are used, it starts to reveal and unpack all sorts of benefits, not just for interest, but actually make for better innovations at the end of it that stick better. Go to the next slide. Yeah. So who is it for? Well, this is being designed for huge varieties of types of people, and therefore I'm setting it up for failure, aren't I? Well, no. We all come into this from different positions with different interests. And what we're trying to do with societal readiness assessment is create sets of tools that actually work in all sorts of contexts and for all sorts of different types of people who can pick them up and use them as they see fit for where they are in a project. Okay. I think perhaps one question is, what would happen if we don't do things like this? We've all been involved. I put my hand in the air. We've all been involved in lots of projects that flew along and then they stopped and everything stopped. Or they flew along and they didn't deliver what we thought they were going to deliver. And we could keep doing that, but it's an awful lot of money and resource that's getting wasted. So can we start to dare to think that we can actually stop doing things wrongly? And that's not a criticism, it's just how things are. The picture on the right helped get us a bit of a contract in the Brecon Beacons. I would wager that in transport, quite a lot of the time, we're trying to go in a bit less bad direction. We've got a problem, let's make it a bit less bad. But what societal readiness assessment allows us to do and reflect on is what's really good? Where are we absolutely trying to get to? Not just in terms of, have we got a shiny bus, but all of the other things that flow from that, in terms of all the societal outcomes, the environmental outcomes, all these other benefits, the economic benefits as well. So let's start thinking about what does really good look like. And societal readiness assessment allows us to start thinking in those broad terms. So just to conclude then, the question at the bottom really is, how good is your innovation, policy, technology vision, whatever, for society? How good is it? How does it actually work for society rather than is it just a bit blingy and have you got some nice graphics related to it?